The planet of Arvos hung in the dark stretch of space like a forgotten jewel. Its surface was hidden beneath thick clouds that shimmered faintly with blue lightning. No human had stepped foot on this world before, but now a small team of explorers drifted above it in the sleek ship called Orion's Path. Mara, the pilot, leaned over the control panel, her eyes fixed on the readings from the scanners. The instruments were showing something unusual deep beneath the surface. Toma, the engineer, crouched beside her, tapping at a tablet. "I have never seen energy readings like this," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes held excitement. "Whatever is down there, it is very old, and it is active." Their eye companion, Nova, chimed in with her usual calm tone. "Caution advised. Unknown structures may be dangerous. Recommendation: study remotely before entering." Mara shook her head and smiled. "Caution will get us nowhere, Nova. We are here to explore. That is what humans do best. We see, we try, we learn." The ship descended through the thick clouds, buffeted by gusts of wind and lightning. The planet's surface finally appeared as a landscape of jagged rocks and frozen plains. Hidden among the rocks was the entrance to the structure that had caught their attention. It was a massive stone archway, partially buried in the ground, with strange carvings along its surface. The symbols pulsed faintly with light, almost as if they were breathing. Mara guided the ship to land near the entrance. The air outside was thin and cold, but breathable with their suits. The humans stepped onto the rocky ground, their boots crunching against sharp stones. Toma shined his flashlight on the archway, and the carvings glowed brighter. "This is incredible," he whispered. "It looks alive somehow." Mara stepped forward and ran her gloved hand over the stone. A shiver ran through her. The carvings pulsed faster, reacting to her touch. "It is waiting for someone," she said quietly. "And I think it has been waiting for us." The entrance led to a tunnel that disappeared into darkness. Mara flicked on the lights from their suits, but the walls seemed to absorb the glow. Shadows moved as if they had a life of their own. Toma adjusted his scanner. "The readings are fluctuating. This place is full of energy we cannot understand." Nova spoke again. "Warning: structural integrity unknown. Proceed with extreme care." Mara took a deep breath. "Extreme care is fine, Nova, but we have to go in. This is what makes us human. We do not turn away from the unknown." The team began walking into the tunnel. The walls were smooth and cold, carved with strange patterns that twisted and curved like vines. Occasionally, the light from their suits would catch something that looked like a face or a hand, but when they blinked, it was gone. The deeper they went, the heavier the air felt, as if the darkness itself pressed against them. After several minutes, they reached the chamber. It was large and circular, with a ceiling that disappeared into blackness. In the center floated a small orb of light, humming with energy. Mara stepped closer and felt the hairs on her arms stand up. Toma examined it carefully. "This is not just light. It is some form of contained energy. I cannot identify it." Suddenly, the orb pulsed brighter, and the shadows along the walls stretched and moved. Whispers filled the chamber, but there was no one else there. Mara and Toma froze, listening. The whispers seemed to speak in a language older than time, but somehow they felt familiar. The walls themselves seemed to hum in response to the whispers, and the floor vibrated slightly. "We are not alone," Toma said. His voice was calm but tense. "Something is aware of us." Mara nodded. "I can feel it. This place is alive, but not like any living thing we know. It is ancient, and it watches. But it does not seem hostile yet. It is testing us." Nova interrupted. "Recommendation: retreat. Unknown entities may be hostile. Probability of danger is high." Mara shook her head. "No, Nova. Retreat would be failure. Humans survive by taking risks. We learn by facing what others fear. She reached out her hand to the orb, and it pulsed again, brighter this time. Light danced across the walls, revealing symbols etched deeper into the stone. Toma followed her, carefully placing his hands on the walls to study the patterns. Each pulse of light seemed to respond to their movements. "This is amazing," Toma said. "It is as if the structure itself is alive, communicating with us." No other species would even notice this. Mara smiled. "That is why humans are different. We are curious, creative, and brave. We see patterns where others see only darkness. That is why we will survive." The chamber grew darker again, and the whispers faded. But Mara could feel a presence watching, waiting. It was patient, and it would not leave them easily. She glanced at Toma and nodded. They had taken the first step into the unknown. Whatever lay ahead, the crypt had begun its test, and the humans were ready to face it. The adventure had only just begun, and the darkness waited patiently for their next move. The humans moved deeper into the crypt, their lights cutting through the thick darkness. The walls curved in strange ways, forming narrow passages that twisted like the roots of an ancient tree. Every step echoed, but the echoes did not sound like normal sound. They seemed to carry a weight, almost like the walls themselves were listening. Mara led the way, her eyes scanning the symbols etched into the stone. Each symbol seemed to glow faintly as she passed. "Look at this," she sighed, pointing at a series of shapes that resembled stars and lines. "It is like a map, but not one we can read yet." Toma crouched to examine a panel built into the floor. It hummed with energy, and his scanner struggled to make sense of it. "This is technology, but not human technology. It is old, maybe. Older than any record we have, and it reacts to us. Every movement we make changes the readings." Nova's voice broke the silence. "Warning. Unknown entities may be present. Probability of interference is high." Mara nodded. "I know, Nova, but humans are explorers. We face the unknown. That is what makes us different." As they walked, the whispers returned. This time, they were clearer, forming a strange rhythm that seemed to match the beat of their hearts. The sound was soft, almost like it was coming from inside their minds. Mara felt a shiver run down her spine. "Do you hear that?" she asked. Toma nodded. "Yes, it is not threatening, but it is trying to communicate. Somehow, this place is alive, but not in a way we understand." They reached a larger chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness. Shadows stretched along the walls, twisting and moving as if they had their own life. The air felt heavier here, and the hum of energy was stronger. In the center of the room was a pool of black liquid that seemed to absorb the light from their suits. The reflections on the surface showed strange, fleeting images, faces, hands, places they did not recognize. Mara stepped closer, her reflection wavering in the liquid. "It is like a mirror," she whispered, "but it does not reflect reality. It shows something else, something old and powerful." Toma knelt by the pool, scanning the energy. "This is dangerous. It is alive in some way. If we touch it, we may trigger something we cannot control." Nova spoke again, her tone urgent. "Recommendation: withdraw. Probability of danger is extremely high." Mara shook her head. "No, we cannot leave. Humans survive by understanding the unknown, not by running from it. We need to see what this is." She reached out her hand, and the black liquid rippled. The whispers grew louder, forming words that she could almost understand. They spoke of testing, of patience, and of beings who had failed before. The crypt had seen many explorers, but none like humans. It seemed curious, studying them, learning from their reactions. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the far wall. It was large and shapeless, but it had purpose in its movement. Mara stepped back instinctively. "Do you see that?" she asked. "Thomas." Eyes widened. It is the guardian. The crypt protects itself. This thing has been waiting for someone to enter, and now it is here. The shadow grew taller, stretching toward the ceiling, then lowering itself to the floor. It moved like water, smooth and fluid, yet it had weight. The whispers shifted into a warning tone, urging them to leave. Mara held up her hand. Stay calm. Humans are clever. We do not fight blindly. We observe and act. That is our strength. The shadow paused, sensing her words. It circled the chamber, examining them, testing them. Mara noticed a pattern in its movements. Every time she or Toma shifted, it hesitated, almost as if it did. Not expect their actions. Toma whispered. It reacts to us differently than it would to other beings. Humans are unpredictable, and it does not know what we will do next. Mara smiled faintly. That is why we survive, Toma. Not because we are the strongest, but because we think differently. We adapt. The shadow lunged forward suddenly, faster than their lights could track. Mara dove to the side, pulling Toma with her. They rolled across the floor, and the shadow passed through the place where they had been standing, leaving only darkness behind. Breathing heavily, Mara looked at the guardian. It is testing us. It wants to see if we can outthink it, not just fight it. That is the nature of this crypt. Toma nodded. We need to move carefully. Every decision counts. If we make one mistake, this place could trap us forever. They began walking again, this time more carefully. Mara's hand brushed over the walls, feeling the vibrations and the energy pulsing beneath the stone. Every symbol seemed to respond to them, lighting up in sequences that hinted at a path. The whispers guided them subtly, giving clues only humans could notice. As they went deeper, the chamber opened into a hallway that curved downward. The shadows followed them silently, watching, waiting, but Mara felt no fear. Instead, she felt curiosity, determination, and the quiet thrill of being tested. The crypt had begun its challenge, and the humans were ready to meet it. For the first time, they understood something important. The crypt was not just a trap or a prison. It was a test of intelligence, creativity, and courage. And humans, Mara thought, had something no other species could match. Their journey into darkness had only begun, and the crypt was ready to reveal more secrets. The shadows had followed Mara and Toma for a long time, moving silently along the walls and floor. Every now and then, they would stretch toward the humans like fingers, then pull back as if testing their courage. Mara's heart beat faster, but she kept her voice calm. We cannot let fear control us. The crypt reacts to fear, but humans are brave. That is our strength. Toma nodded, scanning the hallway for traps or hidden panels. I think it is more than just a shadow. It is alive, and it understands movement. It is testing our intelligence, not just our courage. We have to be smarter than it. Suddenly, the shadow surged forward, faster than either of them could move. Mara grabbed Toma's arm and pulled him aside. The shadow crashed into the wall, sending fragments of stone scattering. Its movement was fluid, like water, but its power was undeniable. It seemed impossible to defeat with strength. Alone. Mara took a deep breath. Strength will not save us. We need to use our brains. The crypt expects us to think, to adapt. She looked around quickly and noticed a series of glowing symbols along the walls. They were faintly pulsing, and the shadow hesitated whenever she moved near them. Toma pointed at the patterns. Maybe it reacts to energy and light. If we can manipulate the lights from our suits and the reflections, we might be able to control its movements. Mara nodded. Then we do it. Let's make it chase what we want, not the other way around. The two humans moved carefully, testing the patterns of the lights against the shadow's reactions. Every time they shifted their position, the shadow slowed or changed direction. They realized it was not mindless. It adapted quickly, but humans were unpredictable. That was an advantage no other species could use as well. Using broken panels from the walls and pieces of their equipment, Mara and Toma created a small trap. They positioned mirrors to reflect the light from their suits toward the shadow, hoping to confuse it. The shadow hesitated, twisting and curling as if unsure where to go. Mara moved forward slowly, and the shadow followed the reflected light. Instead of their real positions, Toma whispered, "It is working. It is reacting to the light, not to us. We can guide it." Mara smiled. "Good. Now we have the upper hand." Humans survive by thinking, adapting, and acting when others hesitate. They guided the shadow into a side chamber where the ceiling was lower and the walls closer together. The shadow's movements became restricted and it began to slow. Mara and Toma worked together, using quick thinking to keep it distracted. While they examined the chamber, inside, they found strange devices built into the walls. They hummed with energy, and the symbols pulsed faster as the shadow entered. Toma ran his scanner over the panels. These devices are part of the Crypt's defense system. If we can manipulate them, we might be able to control the entire shadow. Mara nodded. "We need to move carefully. One wrong step, and it could trap us. But humans are creative. That is our gift. We can solve problems no one else can." They worked together, moving pieces of equipment, redirecting light, and activating panels in sequence. The shadow struggled to follow, twisting and curling. But each human decision changed its path. Finally, with a careful adjustment, the shadow froze in place, hovering in the center of the chamber. It seemed to acknowledge their success, retreating slightly into the darkness, but remaining present. Mara took a step forward. It knows we are clever. It recognizes that humans are different. Other species may have failed because they reacted with fear or force. We think, we adapt, and that is why we survive. Toma added, and we do not just survive. We learn. We understand. That is what this crypt is testing. Not strength, not speed, but intelligence and courage. The shadow slowly dissolved into the walls, leaving the humans standing alone in the chamber. The air felt lighter, and the whispers faded into soft, almost musical tones. The crypt had accepted their presence, at least for now. It had tested their minds and found them worthy. Mara looked at Toma and smiled. "We have passed the first test, but I can feel it. The crypt has more challenges ahead. We need to stay alert, stay clever, and trust ourselves." Toma nodded. "We have learned something important. The crypt responds to creativity and courage. We have both, and that is why we are still here." They moved forward, deeper into the crypt. The walls became smoother, and the light from their suits reflected off polished stone. Symbols glowed brighter, forming patterns that hinted at the path ahead. The energy in the air was strong, but no longer threatening. Mara felt excitement building. Each challenge in the crypt seemed designed to test the limits of human ability. As they walked, the whispers returned, but this time they were softer and calmer. Mara felt as if the crypt itself was guiding them, offering clues and encouragement. Toma touched the wall, tracing the symbols with his fingers. "It is like it wants us to succeed. It wants to see what humans can do." Mara nodded. "And we will not disappoint it. Humans survive because we are clever, brave, and adaptable. That is why we can face anything, even the darkness itself." The two of them pressed on, unaware of how far the crypt stretched or what dangers waited ahead. But they walked with confidence, knowing that their human spirit was the one thing no darkness could overcome. The Guardian had tested them, but humans had answered the challenge. And deeper within the crypt, the next trial waited silently, ready to see if humans could continue to prove their worth. Mara and Toma walked cautiously through the winding halls of the crypt. The air was cooler here, and the walls seemed smoother, almost polished by time. Symbols glowed softly, guiding their path like a river of light. The whispers had changed. They were calmer now, almost encouraging, as if the crypt recognized their cleverness. "This place is strange," Thomas said, examining the walls. "The symbols are like instructions, but also like a language we do not fully understand." "The crypt is teaching us while testing us," Mara nodded. "Humans are learners. That is why we survive. We do not just react. We think, we adapt. That is what this place wants to see." The corridor opened into a larger chamber. The ceiling was high and arched like the dome of an ancient temple. In the center was a pedestal with a crystal hovering above it. The crystal pulsed with soft blue light, and the air around it shimmered. Shadows danced along the walls, but they were smaller now, less threatening. "That must be the central core," Thomas said, scanning the crystal. "It is the source of the crypt's energy. If we can understand it, we can control our path safely." Mara stepped closer, careful not to disturb the energy too quickly. The crystal's glow reflected in her eyes, and she felt a strange connection. The whispers seemed clearer now, forming words she could almost recognize. They spoke of balance, of patience, and of respect for the old power that had built the crypt. Nova's voice broke the silence. "Warning, energy levels are unstable. Risk of overload is high. Recommend extreme caution." Mara nodded. "We must be careful, but we cannot stop. Humans face danger every day, and we survive because we do not give up." Toma examined the pedestal. Strange channels and grooves were etched into the stone, leading from the crystal to the walls and ceiling. Energy pulsed through these paths, responding to their presence. "It is a network," he said. "The crystal connects to the entire crypt. If we can interact carefully, we might unlock its secrets." Mara touched the pedestal lightly, and the crystal pulsed stronger. A wave of warmth passed through the room, and the shadows on the wall shifted, forming patterns that looked like moving constellations. The whispers became musical, a rhythm that seemed to encourage them to continue. Toma studied the energy patterns. "It is responding to thought, not just touch. The crypt wants intelligence and creativity. If we focus, we can guide the energy safely." Mara closed her eyes for a moment, thinking. She imagined a path through the crypt, one that would allow them to move deeper without triggering danger. The crystal responded instantly, and the grooves on the pedestal glowed in sequence. "Look," Thomas said, eyes wide. "It is following. Your idea. The crypt adapts to clever solutions, not force." Mara smiled. "Humans are unique. Other species may rely on strength, but we rely on thinking. That is why we survive. That is why we are here." They followed the new path illuminated by the crystal's energy. The shadows became calmer, guiding them instead of threatening them. Symbols on the walls changed, forming arrows and lines that led toward a deeper chamber. Mara felt a thrill and excitement. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the crypt, but also closer to unknown challenges. Suddenly, the path narrowed. A low wall of energy blocked their way, glowing with a voling with a breeze wind with a vojita. A low wall of energy blocked their way, glowing with a faint blue light. Toma raised his hand. "This is a barrier. It reacts to the crystal's energy. We cannot touch it carelessly." Mara studied the barrier carefully. She noticed faint patterns that matched the constellations on the walls earlier. "We have to solve it like a puzzle. Observe, think, act. The crypt responds to thought, not force." They spend minutes analyzing the energy, adjusting the crystal's influence through the pedestal, and testing their ideas. Each attempt changed the patterns slightly. Finally, Mara saw a combination that worked. She directed the energy along specific channels, and the barrier shimmered before fading away entirely. Toma grinned. We did it. Humans are clever, patient, and brave. The crypt acknowledges that. Mara looked at the path ahead. The chamber beyond was vast, with high walls covered in intricate symbols. The air was warm, filled with energy, and the whispers now spoke clearly, almost like a song. The crypt is not just a test, it is a teacher. Every challenge shows us what humans can do. Toma nodded. And humans survive because we adapt. We think differently. That is why we face the unknown and overcome it. They stepped forward, together, deeper into the crypt, confident in their ability to meet whatever trials awaited them. The crystal's light guided them, the shadows no longer threatening, and the whispers filled the air with soft encouragement. Mara felt a sense of purpose. The crypt was vast and mysterious, but humans had proven themselves capable. They would continue, facing every challenge with intelligence, courage, and patience. The central core had shown them that survival was more than strength. It was thought, strategy, and the unyielding human spirit. As they moved deeper, the next trial awaited silently, ready to test their limits again. Mara and Toma were prepared, knowing that their journey into the crypt was far from over, but confident that humans had the one gift no darkness could destroy. Mara and Toma moved deeper into the crypt, their footsteps echoing against the polished walls. The air felt heavier here, thick with energy, and the whispers had grown louder. This part of the crypt seemed alive, as if it were watching their every move. The light from the crystal pedestal behind them faded slowly, leaving shadows that twisted along the walls. Something is different, Toma said, scanning the chamber ahead. The energy is stronger, almost like the crypt is preparing a new challenge. I feel pressure in the air, as if it wants to see if we can handle it. Mara nodded, her eyes scanning the symbols on the walls. Humans survive because we notice details others miss. We see patterns and we act. That is why we are still here. We must stay alert. They entered a vast hall, taller and wider than any chamber they had seen before. The walls were covered in moving symbols that shifted and changed constantly, forming strange shapes and patterns. In the center of the room, a massive door blocked the path forward. It was carved from a dark stone that seemed to absorb light. The whispers grew louder, speaking in a rhythm that felt like a warning. This must be the next trial, Mara said softly. The crypt is testing more than thought now. It is testing courage. Humans do not run from challenges. We face them. Toma stepped closer to the door and touched its surface. Energy rippled under his fingers, and the symbol shifted rapidly. It reacts to touch, but also to fear. I can feel it sensing our emotions. If we hesitate, it will not open. Mara took a deep breath. Then we show no fear. Humans survive because we do not let fear control us. We act with intelligence and courage. That is how we succeed. They studied the door carefully. Symbols on its surface formed a puzzle, moving and changing as if alive. The crypt wanted them to solve it, but it also wanted to see how they would react under pressure. Mara noticed that some symbols formed shapes that mirrored their own movements. "Look," she whispered. "It is responding to us. Our movements, our thoughts. We have to synchronize with it, not force it." Toma nodded. We moved together, carefully, slowly. Observe the patterns, then act. They began a careful dance, stepping, shifting, and gesturing in time with the symbols. Every movement changed the shapes on the door. Some sections glowed brighter, while others dimmed. The whispers became louder, almost like a heartbeat, and the shadows on the walls twisted more rapidly. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shifted. A section of the ground rose like a platform, carrying them toward the center of the hall. The door reacted, pulsing with energy. Mara realized the crypt was testing not just thought and courage, but coordination and timing. We have to work together perfectly, she said. Humans survive because we can cooperate. We can plan, communicate, and act as one. That is why we can face the impossible. Toma adjusted his stance and mirrored her movements. Together, they guided the symbols, following the rhythm of the crypt. Slowly, the massive door began to open inch by inch. Energy surged around them, but they stayed focused, ignoring the pressure that threatened to push them back. As the door opened fully, a wave of energy rushed out, filling the hall with light. The shadows fled, and the whispers softened into a gentle hum. Beyond the door lay a new chamber, smaller but more intricate. Crystals hung from the ceiling, reflecting light in patterns that seemed like stars. The energy here was calmer, almost welcoming, as if the crypt was pleased with their success. Mara smiled. The trial was not just about strength. It was about patience, coordination, and courage. Humans have all three, and that is why we succeeded. Toma examined the crystals. This chamber feels different. The crypt is not testing us anymore. It is guiding us. It wants us to learn, to understand the energy, and to see what humans are capable of. They moved carefully through the chamber, observing the way light and energy interacted with the crystals. The whispers spoke more clearly now, almost like words forming in the air. Mara could feel the crypt teaching them, showing the patterns that connected everything inside. This is more than a test, Mara said. The crypt is a teacher. Every challenge, every puzzle, every shadow shows us what humans can do. Intelligence, courage, patience, and cooperation. That is why we survive where others fail. Toma nodded. And we keep moving forward. Humans never stop learning. That is our greatest strength. That is why we can face darkness, puzzles, and trials that no other species could handle. The chamber's energy shifted, forming a glowing path toward a narrow corridor. Mara and Toma followed it, feeling stronger, more confident. They had faced a challenge that tested mind, heart, and coordination, and they had succeeded. The crypt recognized them as worthy as they moved forward. The whispers faded into a soft hum, and the light from the crystals illuminated the way. Mara felt excitement building. The crypt's heart was near, and the next trial promised to be even more complex. But she knew humans could handle anything, as long as they stayed clever, brave, and united. The crypt had tested them, and humans had answered. They would continue, ready for every trial, knowing that their courage, intelligence, and cooperation were the keys to surviving even the darkest challenges. Mara and Toma followed the glowing path deeper into the crypt. The walls here were covered with carvings of strange creatures and unknown machines. Energy flowed along the symbols, pulsing like the heartbeat of the crypt itself. The whispers were softer now, more like guidance than warning. It felt as if the crypt had accepted them, but a new challenge waited ahead. This chamber feels different, Mara said. It is calmer, but I sense something powerful ahead. The crypt is preparing us for its deepest secrets. Toma nodded. We have passed every trial so far. The crypt tests intelligence, courage, and cooperation. Now, it might test our understanding of everything we have learned. The corridor opened into a circular chamber. In the center floated a sphere of pure light, surrounded by layers of translucent energy. The air shimmered as if the sphere contained the knowledge of the crypt itself. Symbols floated around it, forming shifting patterns that looked like a language of energy. Mara stepped closer, feeling a pull toward the sphere. This is the heart of the crypt, she said. Everything we have faced led to this moment. Humans survive because we learn from experience. Now we must understand, not just act. Toma raised his hand toward the sphere. Energy rippled outward, and the walls glowed, The whispers formed clearer shapes, almost like sentences in the air. Mara realized the crypt was communicating through light and energy, teaching them a language older than humans. "It is showing us patterns," Mara said. "Everything in the crypt is connected. Energy, symbols, movement, they all have meaning. If we understand this, we can unlock the final challenge." The sphere pulsed stronger, sending waves of light across the room. Shadows formed shapes of past trials, showing how they had solved puzzles, faced fear, and cooperated. Mara and Toma watched, learning from their own actions. The crypt was not just a place of tests. It was a teacher that used experience as a guide. "This is incredible," Toma said. "The crypt records our choices and reflects them back. It is showing us that every action has meaning. Humans survive because we can learn, adapt, and grow. That is what the crypt wants to see." Mara nodded. "We must focus. Every thought, every movement, every decision counts. The crypt is testing our understanding, not our strength." They approached the sphere carefully. Energy flowed toward them, forming paths of light on the floor. Each path led to a different section of the chamber, and each seemed to test a different skill. One path formed a puzzle of moving symbols, another a corridor that shifted with every step, and another showed patterns of energy that required careful timing. "We need to divide our attention," Mara said. "Humans survive because we can think in many directions at once. We must combine intelligence, courage, and coordination to reach the center." Toma moved along the path of symbols, carefully adjusting each piece to match the patterns. Mara followed the shifting corridor, stepping in rhythm with the energy pulses. The paths were connected, and every success in one affected the others. The sphere pulsed brighter with every correct movement. The whispers grew louder, forming a harmony that seemed to guide them. Mara realized that the crypt was alive in a way she had never imagined. It responded to thought, strategy, and understanding. Humans could adapt to its language, and that was why they could succeed where others would fail. Finally, the paths converged at the center. The sphere's light enveloped them, and the whispers became a clear voice. "You have learned," it said. "You have shown intelligence, courage, cooperation, and understanding. You are worthy of the crypt's deepest secret." Mara and Toma looked at each other, knowing that the moment of truth had come. The sphere expanded, filling the chamber with light, and the energy patterns formed an image of a world they had never seen. It showed civilizations, planets, and stars connected by energy like the crypt itself. Mara realized the crypt was a map, a guide to knowledge beyond their imagination. "This is the crypt's purpose," Mara said. "It is not just a challenge. It is a teacher, a guide, and a protector of knowledge. Humans survive because we can learn, adapt, and use knowledge to grow." Toma nodded, eyes wide. "We have unlocked something greater than any trial. The crypt shows that intelligence and courage are stronger than darkness. That is why humans endure." The sphere began to shrink, sending pulses of light through the chamber. Mara and Toma felt energy flow into them, a gift from the crypt for their perseverance and understanding. They knew this was not the end. The knowledge they had gained would guide them, and perhaps the entire human race, into the future. As the light faded, the whispers became soft encouragement. Mara smiled. "The crypt tested us, and we succeeded. Humans survive because we think, we learn, and we face challenges together. That is the greatest gift of all." Toma looked at the chamber, now calm and quiet. "The crypt will remain, waiting for those who are worthy, but we have learned its secrets, and we will carry them forward, stronger than before." Mara and Toma left the chamber, feeling the crypt's energy guiding them. They had faced darkness, puzzles, and fear, and they had prevailed. The final trial had shown them the true power of knowledge, courage, and unity. Humans were ready for anything, because they had the one gift no darkness could take: understanding. The crypt had revealed its heart, and Mara and Toma walked forward, ready to face the next part of their journey, knowing that intelligence and courage would always light the way. Mara and Toma stepped out of the chamber into a long corridor bathed in soft light. The energy of the crypt hummed gently around them like a quiet heartbeat. They felt calm, stronger, and wiser than when they had first entered. The crypt had tested their mind, courage, and teamwork, and now it was as if it was acknowledging their success. "This feels different," Toma said, looking around. "The crypt is guiding us back, but I think it is also showing us something important. We are not leaving empty-handed," Mara nodded. "We carry knowledge now. Humans survive because we learn from our challenges and bring that knowledge into the world. That is what the crypt wants us to understand." They moved through the corridors, observing the symbols and energy patterns. Each seemed to reflect the lessons they had learned: courage, intelligence, cooperation, and understanding. It was as if the crypt itself was teaching that these qualities were the keys to human survival. Ahead, a large door appeared, carved from the same dark stone as before, but this one had no symbols. Instead, it shone with a calm, welcoming light. Mara realized that this was the final exit, the gateway from the crypt back into the world above. As they approached, the light pulsed gently, like it recognized them. Mara reached out and touched the door. A warm energy flowed through her hand and into her body. The crypt was not just opening, it was sharing a part of itself with them. "This is the gift," Mara whispered. "The crypt gives knowledge, courage, and understanding too. Those who can handle it. Humans survive because we can use what we learn, and that is more powerful than any darkness." Toma smiled, feeling the energy flow through him as well. "We have faced every trial. We solved the puzzles, faced fear, and worked together. Now, we take the crypt's lessons with us." The door opened slowly, revealing the world outside. Sunlight poured in, warm and bright. The shadows of the crypt stayed behind, but Mara and Toma felt their influence within. They were not the same as before. The crypt had changed them. As they stepped out, they noticed how quiet and still the land seemed. It was early morning, and the first rays of the sun lit the fields and forests. Birds flew overhead, and the wind carried a soft, fresh scent. Mara and Toma smiled at the beauty of the world, knowing that the crypt's lessons were not just about surviving darkness, but about appreciating light. "We have learned what humans are capable of," Mara said. "The crypt showed us that intelligence, courage, cooperation, and understanding are our greatest strengths. No challenge can stop us. If we use them well," Toma nodded, "and we will share this knowledge with others. Humans survive because we teach each other, guide each other, and grow together. That is the gift of the crypt." They walked toward their village, carrying the energy and lessons of the crypt within them. Along the way, they saw people working, learning, and helping each other. Mara realized that the real power of humans was not just in facing challenges, but in lifting each other through knowledge and courage. The crypt had tested them, but it had also prepared them for the world outside. Mara and Toma felt a deep connection to the energy of the crypt, a reminder that the lessons they had learned were now part of them. Humans survived not because they were the strongest, but because they could think, learn, and act together. As they reached their village, children ran to greet them. The people had heard stories of the crypt, and many believed it was impossible to enter. Mara smiled at the children, seeing the curiosity in their eyes. "One day, you will face challenges too," she said softly. "But remember, courage, intelligence, cooperation, and understanding will guide you. Humans survive because we learn and grow, even in darkness." Toma looked at the sky, feeling the energy of the crypt still flowing within him. The world has challenges ahead, but We are ready. The crypt showed us that darkness can be overcome, and that humans are capable of more than we imagine. The villagers gathered around, listening as Mara and Toma shared what they had learned. They spoke of puzzles, energy, and the importance of courage and teamwork. The children listened wide-eyed, and the adults nodded, understanding that these lessons were not just for survival, but for thriving in any situation. As the sun climbed higher, Mara and Toma felt a sense of peace. The crypt was behind them, but its lessons would guide them forever. Humans survived because they were clever, brave, and united. And that was the true treasure of the crypt. The world stretched out before them, full of challenges and opportunities. Mara and Toma walked forward together, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that darkness could never overcome the light of understanding and courage. The crypt had tested them, and they had succeeded. Humanity would endure, not because of strength alone, but because of wisdom, bravery, and unity. The journey of the crypt was complete, but the story of those who carried its lessons had only just begun. Mara and Toma smiled at each other, stepping fully into the light, ready to bring the power of human courage and intelligence into the world.